often say, I saw it with my own eyes. But did you see what you see? Did you see that the man is walking on a painting and not on a 3D construction? When you look more carefully, you see that the shadows do not match. Our eyes do not always give us the right information on the first sight, as we saw in the previous videos. We are just not perfect. That's also the reason why we sometimes have accidents. In traffic situations, we must be able to judge the situation very fast. That's especially for pedestrians important. They are almost no having protection. And that is why they make sometimes use of optical illusions to make the road safer. This example is a very nice example of how we can use art in a very social way. And I'm Robbie, also far from perfect. I'm now helping the Art for Children Gallery in Da Nang, Central Vietnam. I help them to develop educational projects, often based on my own being not perfect. Like when I was little, I often woke up in the middle of the night in the pitch dark, and I was very scared. So scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. But when I sat upright in my bed for a while, I started to see more and more. And it's that experience that led to the Frog Project. Another nice example of how we can use art to help children to deal with, in this situation, the fear from night darkness. This project starts with the frogs because they are popular, but still very special and interesting. They can jump very far, and when kissed they become a prince, what they said. Well, I read about it in a book, and the book had nice illustrations of that frog prince. So in some way it must be true. Our own project was held the first time in a theater. It had a small exhibition with a lot of frog things, including that Frog Prince book. The exhibition had several original artworks, especially made for children, and as you can see on the photo, they're also hung on children's height. Central in the theater was a place where they could draw and create their own favorite frog. While they are doing so well, the question suddenly arises whether they would like to visit the frogs at their living place. Well, of course they want that, but then it appears to be a problem. Frogs mainly live at night, and it's very dark at night. So when we visit them, it will be pitch dark there. We can only hear them. As expected, the frogs' living place we had in the theater also did look very, very dark. Well, who dares? A few children really don't dare. One of the supervisors will go with those few children into the special frog place, which is a part of the place that can become very dark but is not yet darkened at that moment. The children can sit against the wall and are given the light switch, so they can turn the light away themselves. They do that very slowly because it's very exciting. The nice thing is that if you do it very slowly, it never really gets completely dark. There's always a little light somewhere, only you experience that whole darkness when you come from a brightly lit room straight into that darkened room. It takes a while for your eyes to adjust to the darkness and start seeing things. After a while, you even seem to be able to see quite well. Now that the place is dark, the other children can enter the room one by one, and you see them walk carefully with their hands outstretched. We then help them to find a seat so they can sit down and get used to the darkness. When everyone is sitting and getting louder because the fear has been overcome, the light comes on. In the beginning it's still dark, but slowly they saw more and more and more. And then there's the sun that slowly rises and more light is added until it's a real day. I think most of us do not feel really comfortable in the darkness. When there's very little light, we often see what we do not want to see, although it's not there. We have to learn to wait to decide what we will see until there is more information. And sometimes there's a conflict in the information. That is the base of the drawing what we see activity. When we draw what we see, or with other words, when we reproduce what we see, we are more directly confronted with how we interpret what we see. For this activity, we make use of the famous impossible figures. We show the bed painted by artist Marcel Duchamp and ask the children whether they see what the girl is doing. She's painting. Then we ask them to draw the bed themselves on a paper. Some children will copy it exactly. Some children will correct the original drawing, and some children will be confused with what they see. In the gallery we have a lot of those examples that children can draw by themselves, like the fork with 2 and 3 teeth, which starts with the impossible trident, followed by the fork variation from Stevens. And as I said, we have many of those examples, like this famous triangle from Oscar Reutersvaart. Once they are a bit used to them, it's time to introduce the famous work of the Dutch graphic artist Escher. They have to look carefully and analytic to find out what is impossible. So in their mind they have to compare with how it should be. And even more interesting is the question, are they really impossible? Such as Oscar Reutersvaart's triangle. Look at this picture. It's impossible, we know it, but it looks possible. Well, it just depends on from where you look at it, as you see. Several artists had made some interesting examples of the aspect. That things can look very different depending on where you're standing. Very famous for this is the Japanese designer Shigeru Fukuda. How different we can see the same object depending on where we are standing shows us his artwork called Duet. This is also an introduction to the optical illusion activity. Based on the examples, the children can try to create their own impossible drawings, or even an object that looks very different from different sides. In the next video we will talk about abstraction. There's a lot of misunderstanding about abstract art and how useful it can be. So I like to end this video with a short story and a task. So one day we had an exhibition with very beautiful abstract work. One of the visitors looked at it a bit wistfully, and then she said to me, "It's a pity that my husband hates abstract art so much. He thinks those lines are such nonsense, they must really mean something to him. Otherwise, I would have definitely bought those work." Now I knew that woman well, and I knew that her husband had a successful business and drove a nice and not a cheap car. And I also knew that he always bought the latest model. So I said to her, he just bought a new car. And I don't think there is any technical difference, only the shape of the body has changed a bit. Ask him why he bought that car and what he likes about it so much that he had to buy the latest model. A few days later she came with a very cheerful smile and immediately bought the abstract work. So now the task, those are some beautiful images from nature. You can clearly see, why do people find this so beautiful? Well, the answer comes in the next video. See you there.